play with this stuff when I was a kid. So yeah, it's really fun. In fact, that's funny. Like that's how I learned to draw. When I think I remember when I was 5 or whatever. Like the idea of drawing and finishing a drawing wasn't really a thing. It was like drawing as like an action.
Yeah.
So you would like I would draw like a robot or something, and then I would draw a monster, and then I would then draw the arm of the robot hitting the monster, and then I would draw next to it the monster kind of falling back until like I just kept drawing.
Yeah.
So it's like the narrative just keeps expanding. I just kept drawing until the whole paper is full, and then I would just throw away the paper and start a new thing. So it's never about finishing the drawing, but kind of like the drawing was like a process of like acting out like some kind of battle scene or something, you know. So so only like later on when, and this kind of applies to drawing in general, like you start realizing, no, drawing is actually about stopping. It's not about starting the drawing, it's about stopping. You know, like you don't get a drawing if you just keep drawing, you know? Like if you keep drawing, you just get fucking doodles, you know? So the idea of like, no, don't draw that bit because you need to stop to make it a drawing. So I think that's like an important like lesson to learn, you know? Like that's always the act of like learning to draw. It's like because at first you start trying to learn as close to nature as possible. You start drawing people's faces, you start drawing plants, whatever. You start drawing like a fucking bottle or like a vase, whatever, and you start shading in every single detail. You know, it's like, and the closer you get to shading every single detail in, the more proud you are. And then you start realizing, no, actually. Like, to make something yours is to turn the thing into an interpretation of the thing, as opposed to, because if you really want like the real thing's already there, you know. And if you want the 2D thing, you just take a photograph. So the idea of like drawing is like take the essence of the thing and make it yours. Then that becomes your drawing of the thing. So you start kind of reducing the amount of marks that you make on the page, and then that becomes your drawing, you know. So as you grow as an illustrator or an artist or whatever, the more you're aware of what you're putting in, what you're taking away, and what's enough and what's too much and all this stuff, you know. So yeah, and yeah, well, I'm trying to learn, you know. It's like I'm always failing because drawing is so much fun, and you want to fill in every single nook and cranny. You kind of have to like decide, okay, this is like good noise, this is good, like there's like a good energy going on here, or like sometimes like I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have filled in that bit, take it away or whatever, reducing the amount of colors, reducing the amount of like fills or shadows or whatever, you know. It's like, it's always that balancing act. Have I gone too far, or is it like, it's so, I don't know, there's like, I keep trying, you know, trying and failing. That's the motto. Those two slides that end up being the thing, which is like my final like parting wisdom, is kind of what I came up with after when I was putting together, because I don't do talks that much. So when I was putting it together, it was kind of like looking inside myself and kind of like trying to figure out my shit, like what is the thread that runs through all this stuff after years of doing it and kind of moving on and developing. It was that, which is that you're never the same person over and over again, and then you grow with the thing until the thing stops growing or you stop growing, and then it ends. And that happens either by you becoming like complacent, or like you stop being curious, you stop wanting to look, you stop doing work really, or the thing itself becomes not interesting anymore because you've grown as a person, you know. So in a way, that's kind of like the life of like a creative, you know. I don't want to sound really like pretentious or anything, but you know, the reason, I don't know, it's not, maybe not for everyone, but the reason I do it, and a lot of people who are doing creative stuff, is like, you do this so you don't work behind a desk, like in an office, you know, just punching in numbers. Like, there is like a challenge to make, the challenge to kind of like apply yourself and apply your creativity to make something. And if what you're making is literally just like, here's the brief, make this exact thing, and you're a craftsman. I have nothing against craftsmen, but like, you're just like some guy in a factory or something, like just churning out shit. So there needs to be that drive, that curiosity that's like, I'm really invested mentally and physically in making this thing. And then I'm gonna take it forward until it doesn't go forward. And it just keeps, you just repeat that cycle over and over through your projects. And if you're lucky, you'll find clients that are willing to go the same journey. And if the relationship doesn't work, you know, for no lack of trying, you just jump to another thing, then you jump to another thing. So it's just like a cycle that just keeps repeating itself, you know? So that's how I interpret the context of the festival, you know? Like, you're constructing and deconstructing yourself and what you need from what you're doing, you know? Because you need it to be fulfilling at the end of the day, you know? Yeah, in ways, I think, I'm hoping anyway, like as you get older and you're becoming more experienced in your work, you become a lot, it's not really about emotions, but you become a lot more sophisticated in terms of how you express ideas. So I'm less interested in emotions in a way, but kind of like, this idea is a lot stronger, you know, like it's a lot more complex, it's a lot more nuanced, or a lot more interesting. I think at the end of the day, interesting is what I'm after. If it interests me and it engages me, then it becomes emotional. So it's not really like, you know, like my emotions change or the way I control my emotions change and that's what's feeding into the work, but hopefully my work becomes more interesting as I become more sophisticated in, you know, putting it down, or like translating the brief or answering the brief, of finding the solution that fits the brief. As I get more sophisticated, it becomes more interesting. Whereas, like I said before, you know, if you take it all the way back to, you know, being a 5-year-old, you don't know so you just draw everything until it completely collapses. And then I could see with my work with Major Lazer, for example, the first album is like, draw everything, like fill in everything, and you don't pay attention to the details per se. Like, I look back at that stuff, it's like, a lot of it is so rough, like, and that's kind of the vibe of it, which is cool. Like, I like it, like, I look back with fondness, but it's like, whoa, like, I wouldn't do that now, because like, I'm aware of it, and I'm hopefully more sophisticated in what I put down, you know, how to handle it, like, you know, so it's a bit like that. Like, I wouldn't have come up with those solutions because those are kind of like the most immediate way to do that. Now, hopefully, that I've experienced and work under my wing, like, I can kind of make better decisions or something, you know? So it's kind of like that, yeah. It's actually interesting. It's so many things in one. Like, because it never, I don't know, I'm speaking just for me, the way I do it, because I know a lot of people don't do it like this. Like, they get a brief and they fulfill the brief and that's it. Whereas for me, it's always been more of a relationship with things that work. With things that don't work, I just hand in the thing, get paid, and that's it. But with things that seem to work better, there always seems to be a relationship. So I get to know them, I get to know what the music is about, why they're making the music, what is the idea behind the music, what is the world that they're trying to conjure up. And then we just hang out, like, trade ideas, and then that feeds into the artwork, as opposed to like, I listen to the music, oh, the music speaks to me. I don't, you know, there's no real, I don't think the correlation works like that. That's why, like, the most fulfilling projects for me are projects like Major Lazer that lasted like campaigns, or like a few things that we did together, because we can construct the world as I understand them, you know? So, so yeah, it's more like a relationship that just keeps evolving, as opposed to just listening to the music and seeing what I can come up with, you know? I met them completely randomly. That's the, like, it wasn't like we were friends or anything. Like, I was just saying in the talk, actually, like, I was picking my friend up from his place of work, this record label. I was just picking him up to go to lunch. And then Diplo and his manager were there, and then my friend introduced me to them and said, oh, didn't you say you had this project that needed an illustrator? Ferry has been doing all our club flyers at the time. I was doing flyers. And it's like, oh yeah, cool, I'll send you an email. And I auditioned for it. The project just felt so perfect, like the way they described it just felt like, oh yeah, I know this world so well. So I handed in my audition, and that was that. Like literally, we didn't change the character, we didn't change the logo, like it was ready-made from the start. So I think from there it was like, because we didn't know each other, but our vision seems to kind of match so perfectly. I think Diplo and his manager, we all grew up with the same comics, the same background and everything. We started to trust each other, so it was kind of like a long like seeing what each other are looking for, what we can do, and then that level of trust then continues to the point where, oh yeah, I started doing this, started doing that. So yeah, it was more like that, you know, like a long kind of build up of trust. I have no personal preference to animation. I think a lot of animation sucks. Like, yeah, like, in fact, because I went to film school, you know, like I went to film school, I went to art school, so it's not like I can't animate, you know, like I'm not an animator. Like I learned it literally by doing it on tracing paper, you know, like I have no idea. So that's why I don't really have any preference for any medium. I don't know, you have to stop, because thinking that you're cursed means that you never had a choice, you know. It's like I think my favorite line of the Smiths song was like, you could have said no if you wanted to, you know. You know, like you have every chance to say no, and yet you do it, you know. So it's like you have all the power in the world to, you know, make your image whatever it is you want. So it's not really a curse, but like, yeah, it is frustrating that people come to me wanting the Major Lazer effect on, you know, like wholesale applied to their thing, as opposed to, like I said, like as opposed to building a relationship, seeing what your thing is about, and then let's build our language together. But it's more like, no, our thing is really like Major Lazer, so we just need your Major Lazer shit on our shit, you know. So it's like, so that bit is frustrating, but I don't really think like, you know, it's a curse as if you don't have any say on it. It's kind of like, you know, you could, at any point, you could change your course, you can say no, you can do anything else to kind of rectify the image. So you always have like things you can do if it really bothers you. So it doesn't really bother me, and and most of all, you know, like I'm really proud of a lot of stuff I've done for Major Lazer, so it's not like, yeah, it doesn't really bother me. It's frustrating sometimes when the relationship is that like, that black and white, like, oh, we just need your shit on this thing. But, you know, what can you do? So yeah, you know, like I said, it becomes like, you know, it was inspiring for a long time, and we're really doing great work. And then the band got to a point where it's like, I couldn't take them to where they want to go, and it stopped being interesting to me. The process was not how I would want to do my thing, you know. It's like trying to maneuver a massive ship full of people, trying to like go one way where everyone else wants to go like so many different ways. It's like you end up being like a day-to-day like social worker or manager, like, managing, you know, like voices as opposed to like doing work. So, you know, like, so that's that, you know. It's like, that's just like I said, construct and deconstruct. Like you hit the reset button and you try and find something else that's interesting, you know? So, yeah. Like going away from Major Lazer, because it was, you know, it was so much of my life. Like I was doing it 24/7. Like my personal expression was going into Major Lazer. So anything that I wanted to express, I waited for the next bit of artwork or poster or whatever that needed to be drawn, and I would put whatever ideas that I have into that thing. Now that I have some free time to decide for myself what it is that I want to do, it gave me time and space to kind of explore things that don't really have an end goal, don't really have a product, you know, so it becomes like really like freeing. So lately I've been just drawing, like just trying out drawing again, you know, like seeing where it takes me. And to be honest, like the past few months I've done some of the best shit I've ever done in my life, I think. Like the things that are, I think, most accomplished and looks the best and all this stuff, but it's not for anything. So it's like, you know, so it's not like you can really show people, or if it's like available on posters, or hopefully it'll find a home somewhere. Even if it doesn't, like, we have like this zine collective thing, me and my wife and my best friend. So the zine collective, so we pull together our wildest ideas that won't really get any work and just kind of put it into the zine and like put it out. And for me, it's a bit like business cards. Like, you know, like everyone gives out business cards, but you know, a few months down the line, someone picks up your business card and is like, who the fuck's this guy? Like what does he do? It's the same business card as everyone else. So with a zine, you can send someone a zine. Everyone loves free shit, so you just like send them the zine. It's like, oh yeah, this guy, he does this thing, you know. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it, but also like a way to exercise my demons, my creative demons, kind of like do interesting shit that no one ever wants. I can't remember a time when I didn't draw, so that's the thing. So like I said, like even early on, as a way of passing the time or playing, I was drawing to play. And then I started watching, like, you know, all the 80s stuff, G.I. Joe, He-Man, and Silverhawks, and Centurions, and all this stuff. That was really amazing, but also because I grew up in Indonesia, we get a lot of Japanese anime and manga, so I was reading all these Japanese comics. And then I got into Marvel, started drawing superheroes, Spider-Man and Venom and all this stuff. So that was just my life. Like at school, there'll be like the notebooks, and in the middle will be all the notes, but on the side is all like drawing. So every single page is like a border of like Spider-Man, yeah, Spider-Man and everything just around the borders. And then sometimes like a thick notebook would be like half the size, because like the middle pages I just keep like taking off to like draw, you know. So shit like that. I just kept drawing, you know, like through school, through growing up, I just kept drawing. So yeah, that's how I grew up. Like, just mimicking like superheroes and mimicking like cartoons and stuff. Well, the thing is, I was so stupid that I didn't even, you know, like you don't know something until you realize that it's a thing. Like I didn't know that comic books had different artists. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, until someone told me like, that comic looks different from that comic because that comic's drawn by that guy, and that comic's drawn by a different guy. Like, what? Like, that's fucking insane, you know? So the idea of, it's like watching films, like, oh, I like this film, I like that film. No, you like those films, and they're always good because they're directed by this really great guy that's really amazing. Oh my God, it all makes sense now. So it was kind of like that. Like, as soon as I realized, oh wow, all the comics that I like are by this one guy, then you start following like a particular guy. But before that, it's literally anything and everything, you know, like Wolverine by anyone. I would just draw Wolverine by anyone, Spider-Man by anyone, you know, until you realize, oh no, the good Spider-Man is by Mark Bagley, the bad Spider-Man is by everyone else, you know, like shit like that, you know. But you don't realize it until you realize, no, authorship is a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some really deep shit like that you don't realize was deep until you go back. Like, actually, like a super simple one. Do you know Doraemon?
Sorry?
Doraemon? It's like a Japanese.
No,
it's like a really,
Japanese.
really famous Japanese animation. Huge in Asia. It's such a simple thing. So he's a cat from the future, and he's a robot, and and he befriends this boy that is really like self-centered and conceited, and he has like all these selfish ideas and how to get stuff. And the thing about this robot cat is that he can produce all these gadgets from his pocket. So it's a bit like the 60s Batman, you know, like they always have a gadget for a particular thing. So every single episode is the boy would have some kind of trouble either at school or at home, and then the cat would produce a gadget to fix that particular problem. And then at first it would go swimmingly and everything would be fixed and everyone would be great. And then the boy turns maniacal and goes way too far and started using the gadget way too much, and then everything falls apart, and then he learns a lesson. So, you know, like really simple shit like that. Like when I look back at it, I was like, fuck, like that's way deeper than anyone else that tries to be really deep, you know? Like sometimes like all these adult comics try and be like really brooding and deep, and it's all about like humanity and all this stuff. And then you look at this robot cat and it's like, no, that's human nature, you know? It's like that tells me more about human nature than any deep brooding comic can, you know? So I think all the best art is like that. Like you don't realize what it was until you realize later on, no, the simplicity of it hides how deep everything is, you know? So yeah, that's my favorite stuff. If you went through trying to watch superhero films through late 80s to throughout the 90s, you know how good this shit is, because like if you watch Spawn, like the Spawn film from 95 or 96, it's fucking unwatchable. It's so shit. And that's like one of my favorite comic characters of all time. Okay. Yeah, it's like, and you watch it's like, what the fuck is this? Like imagine if they had the means to make Spawn now. I think they're trying to reboot Spawn. I don't know. I hope so. I hope they'll do it justice finally. But back then, even like Superman or like Superman on TV, it's like, just like, fuck, I just have to like, you're the nerd because you look at this thing that's completely shit that everyone else thinks is shit, and you're like, no, I really believe this guy can fly, look. You know, you're ready to overlook how shit it is. Now it looks real. It looks legit. Like, how can you be mad? You know, like how can you be like disappointed? It's like, finally, like I'm watching this and you're watching it too, and we're agreeing the guy flies, you know, it looks like he's really flying. Whereas back then, you're the only guy, you and like the other nerds are like, no, I'm really into this, like, you know? The best comic series is this French comic that mimicked like Japanese manga comic called The Last Man. Oh no, it's not called The Last. It's just called Last Man. Okay. And it's just like super traditional, like, you know, guys entering competition and they fight in the ring and they go up. But it's the best. Oh my god, it's the best thing I've ever seen. What else? Like Marcos Martin stuff is some of the best stuff I've seen in terms of like mainstream, like Western, whatever. But then I also got into, I went, because I stopped reading Japanese comics. Okay. So I was just way into superheroes and all this stuff. And then I went back into reading manga again. And then I read Pluto by the guy who did, it's about Astro Boy, but by a different guy. So Pluto is an amazing series. Yeah, that seems to be the only ones that come to my mind at the moment. But Last Man, like, the first 6 was like so the first chapter is the first 6 issues, and then they kind of took a break, and now they're restarting for the next 6 or whatever. But the first 6 was, oh my god! By the time it ended, I was just so amazed. It was amazing. It's incredible. Yeah, you should check it out.